There is something quietly shifting inside you right now, and by the end of this video you will understand exactly what it is, why it is happening, and what it means for the next chapter of your life as a Cancer. Something that once felt permanent is starting to feel too small. Something that once gave you comfort is starting to feel like a cage. And something deep inside you is getting ready to walk through a door you have never opened before. That is not a coincidence. That is not restlessness. That is growth. Real, powerful, inevitable growth. And it is written all over the energy surrounding you right now. You may not be able to put it into words yet. You may not even be sure where these feelings are coming from. But there are signs, clear, recognizable signs, that your soul is preparing to outgrow something that no longer fits who you are becoming. This video is going to name those signs one by one, and as you hear each one, you are going to feel a quiet recognition deep in your chest. That feeling is important. That feeling is your inner wisdom confirming what your heart already suspects. Do not look away from it. Do not explain it away. Let it be the beginning of something new. Stay with this all the way through because the sign that surprises you the most might be the one that changes everything. Sign 1. You have started feeling a kind of heaviness that you cannot quite explain, and it follows you into spaces that used to bring you joy. This is the first sign, and it is one of the most important ones to understand clearly. It does not mean something is wrong with you. It does not mean you are broken or that life has lost its color permanently. What it means is that you have grown beyond a particular version of your story, and your spirit is now pressing against the walls of a space that simply no longer fits. Think about a time in your life when you wore a coat that was too small. You could button it, you could walk in it, but every movement reminded you that it was not made for who you are now. That is what this heaviness is. It is the feeling of being too big for a life that was built for an earlier version of you. For Cancer, this feeling often shows up in very specific ways. It might appear when you wake up in the morning and feel a flatness before the day has even begun. It might appear when you sit down to do something you once loved and find that the spark is simply not there the way it used to be. It might show up as a quiet ache when you are around people who have known you for a long time, because they still see the old version of you, and something in you is tired of performing that version just to keep the peace. This heaviness is not depression, though it can feel like it on the surface. The difference is underneath the heaviness there is also something alive. There is a restlessness that has direction, even if you cannot name the direction yet. There is a pull toward something, even if what you are being pulled toward is still blurry and undefined. Cancer is one of the most emotionally perceptive signs in the entire cycle of the zodiac. Your ability to feel deeply is not a weakness. It is your greatest gift. And right now, that gift is working overtime. It is sending you signal after signal that something in your life needs to change. Not because your life is bad, not because you have failed, but because you have genuinely outgrown a layer of yourself, and that layer is asking to be shed so that something newer and truer can breathe. The heaviness you feel is not the end of something beautiful. It is the beginning of something real. It is the pressure that comes before expansion. It is the tension that comes before breakthrough. And the fact that you feel it so deeply, the fact that you cannot ignore it the way others might be able to, is not a curse. It is a confirmation that you are exactly where you are supposed to be in your journey right now. Do not try to fix this feeling with distraction. Do not try to fill it with busyness or noise. Sit with it. Let it teach you something. Let it point you in the direction your life is asking you to go. Because the heaviness you feel today is the very thing that is going to lead you toward the lightness you are searching for tomorrow. Sign 2. Old conversations have started to feel like they are on repeat, and you find yourself nodding along while something inside you drifts somewhere else entirely. This is the second sign, and it speaks directly to one of Cancer's deepest longings, the longing for genuine, meaningful connection. When you are in the middle of outgrowing something, one of the earliest places it shows up is in your relationships and in the conversations you have within them. Suddenly, the topics that used to feel rich and engaging begin to feel thin. Suddenly, the people you have spent years talking to seem to be speaking a language that no longer fully resonates with where you are now. This does not mean those people are bad. It does not mean the relationships are worthless, or that the years you shared together were wasted. It simply means that you have moved to a new internal address, and the conversations that were built for your old address no longer reach you the way they once did. For many Cancers going through this shift, there is a specific kind of loneliness that comes with it. It is not the loneliness of being alone. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people, and still feeling unseen. It is the loneliness of wanting to talk about what is stirring inside you and not finding the words, or not finding someone who is ready to hold those words with care. You might find yourself sitting in gatherings surrounded by laughter and still feeling like you are watching from behind a glass wall. You might find yourself in a conversation with someone close to you and feeling a strange distance, not because anything has gone wrong, but because you are no longer the same person who started that conversation. This is one of the most tender signs of outgrowing something, because for Cancer, relationships are sacred. They are the architecture of your emotional world. When those relationships begin to feel misaligned, it touches something very deep. But here is what is important to understand. The disconnection you feel is not a sign to abandon everyone and start over. It is a sign to be honest, first with yourself and then carefully with the people around you. Some relationships will grow with you, some will not. And the ones that cannot grow with you are not failures. They are simply chapters that are reaching their natural end. What is being asked of you now is the courage to stop pretending that you are still the same person you were. To stop performing a version of yourself that has already evolved. To let the conversations you have be real ones, even when that is uncomfortable, even when it creates friction, even when it means sitting in silence rather than filling space with words that no longer mean anything to you. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Sign 3. You have been dreaming more vividly lately, and the dreams themselves feel less like random images and more like messages from a part of you that is trying to be heard. This is the third sign, and it is one that Cancer experiences more deeply than almost any other sign. Your inner world is extraordinarily rich. Your intuition is powerful, and when you are on the edge of a major internal shift, that inner world becomes even more active than usual. The dreams you are having right now may feel strange or overwhelming. They may involve people from your past, places you have not thought about in years, situations that feel emotionally charged in ways you cannot quite understand after you wake up. But underneath the images and the feelings, there is a consistent theme running through all of it, and that theme is about identity. Who are you? Who have you been pretending to be? What are you leaving behind? What are you moving toward? Your dreaming mind is processing a transition that your waking mind has not yet fully acknowledged. It is doing the deep work of clearing out old emotional residue, old patterns, old beliefs, old stories you have been carrying about yourself and the world around you. This is not a sign of instability. This is a sign of profound internal reorganization. Something is being rearranged at the deepest level, and your dreams are the most direct window into that process. Pay attention to how you feel when you wake up from these dreams, even if the dreams themselves are hard to remember. Do you feel a sense of longing? A sense of relief? A strange mixture of sadness and excitement? Those feelings are data. They are pointing at something real. They are telling you which parts of your old self you are grieving and which parts of your new self you are beginning to welcome. For Cancer, the inner life is not separate from the outer life. They are deeply intertwined. What happens in your emotional and spiritual interior always eventually shapes what happens in your external reality. And right now, your interior is undergoing a renovation that, once complete, will change how you show up in every area of your life. Do not dismiss what your dreams are trying to tell you. Do not rush past the feelings they stir. Take a few moments in the morning before the day pulls you away to sit with whatever the night brought you. Write it down if you can. Not to analyze it perfectly, but simply to honor the fact that something in you is working very hard on your behalf right now. Something in you is preparing the ground for a version of your life that is more honest, more aligned, and more deeply yours. The dreams are not noise. They are the sound of your becoming. Sign 4. Something that used to feel like a duty now feels like a drain, and you are beginning to notice how much energy certain obligations have been costing you for a very long time. This is the 4th sign, and it is one that strikes deeply at the heart of Cancer's particular challenge in life. Cancer is extraordinarily giving. You are built for care, for nurturing, for showing up for the people and responsibilities in your life with a full heart. But that same generous nature can become a trap. A slow, quiet trap where over the years, you have taken on so many obligations, so many roles, so many expectations from others, that somewhere along the way you lost track of your own desires entirely. The things that started as choices slowly became requirements. The things that started as love slowly became labor. And now you are standing in a life that is full of commitments, and yet somehow it feels strangely empty, because so few of those commitments actually reflect who you are at your deepest level. The fourth sign of outgrowing something is this. You begin to feel a low hum of resentment where there used to be willingness. Not a loud, angry resentment. Cancer is too emotionally aware for that kind of obvious rebellion. But a quiet, persistent sense of being burdened by things that you once chose freely. A tiredness that goes beyond the physical. A weariness that says, "Not this again," when you look at certain parts of your weekly routine. This is not laziness. This is not ingratitude. This is your soul signaling that the balance has been off for too long, and that the next version of your life needs to be built on a much more honest foundation. One where what you give out is a true choice, not an obligation you are afraid to examine. The invitation here is not to drop everything and abandon your responsibilities. The invitation is to begin the slow, careful process of distinguishing between what you do out of genuine love and what you do out of fear of disappointing others, fear of being seen as selfish, fear of the conflict that might come if you said no for once. Because that distinction matters enormously. It is the difference between a life that feeds you and a life that slowly depletes you. And you deserve deeply and absolutely to live the first kind. Sign 5. You have started asking questions that have no easy answers, and instead of finding that terrifying, you find it quietly thrilling. This is the fifth sign, and it speaks to a very specific phase of Cancer's evolutionary journey. There comes a point in any meaningful period of growth when the questions you carry stop being practical and start being existential. Not existential in a frightening way, but in a deep, honest, searching way. Questions like, is this really the life I want? Am I living according to my own values or according to what others expect of me? What would I do, who would I be, if I genuinely let go of every role I have been playing? These questions do not come from crisis. They come from clarity, a clarity that is just beginning to break through the surface of your awareness. For Cancer, this kind of questioning can feel vulnerable, because you have spent so much of your life being the one who holds things together, the one who keeps the emotional environment stable, the one who does not rock the boat. Asking big questions threatens that stability, and part of you is aware of that. But there is another part of you, a deeper, newer part, that is no longer willing to stay quiet just to keep the peace. That part of you is asking to be heard. That part of you is asking to be taken seriously. And the very fact that you are asking these questions, the very fact that they no longer feel impossible to think about, is proof that you have reached a new level of readiness. Something in you has grown strong enough to hold the uncertainty that real growth always brings. That is not a small thing. That is an enormous thing. Honor it. Some people watch. Others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting. It's about moving. Sign 6. The future you used to picture for yourself no longer excites you the way it once did. And a different, less defined future is beginning to pull at your imagination in a way that feels almost dangerous to admit. This is the sixth sign, and it is one of the most powerful indicators that a deep identity shift is underway. For a long time, you may have carried a very specific image of what your life was supposed to look like. Maybe it was an image you built yourself, through years of careful planning and patient waiting. Maybe it was an image handed to you by others, by family, by circumstances, by the story everyone around you seemed to agree upon. Either way, that image served a purpose. It gave you direction. It gave you something to work toward. But now, when you project yourself into that image, something feels flat. The excitement is not there. The pull is not there. And in its place, there is something else. Something blurry and new and not yet fully formed, but unmistakably alive. This is the beginning of a new vision. It is not yet clear enough to describe to others. It may not even be clear enough to describe to yourself. But it is there, flickering at the edges of your awareness, suggesting a direction that is different from the one you have been walking in. For Cancer, this moment can feel terrifying. You invest deeply in your plans. You care enormously about building something stable and lasting. And the idea that the plan you have been following might need to be rewritten, not because it failed, but because you have simply outgrown it, that is a confronting idea. But confronting does not mean wrong. The fact that your old vision no longer fits is not a tragedy. It is evidence that you have grown. It is evidence that the you of today is not the same as the you who first built that plan, and that the new you deserves a new direction, one that is built from who you actually are right now, not who you used to be. Sign 7. You have been choosing quiet over noise more and more, and the solitude you once found uncomfortable has started to feel like the only place where you can actually think. This is the 7th sign, and it is particularly significant for Cancer, whose natural instinct is to seek connection, to be surrounded by warmth and familiarity. When you begin actively choosing solitude over company, something meaningful is happening inside you. Solitude for Cancer in a growth phase is not loneliness. It is a form of self-consultation. It is the inner self asking for space to be heard without interruption. When you are around others all the time, you are always in some degree of response mode, responding to their energy, their needs, their expectations, their emotions. And while Cancer genuinely loves that, while you genuinely thrive in connection, there are moments in life when the inner work that needs to be done simply cannot be done in the presence of others. This is one of those moments. The quiet you are seeking is not an escape from life. It is an invitation to go deeper into yourself than you have been willing to go in a long time. In that quiet, you will find things you have been avoiding, old emotions that never fully processed, old dreams that were set aside before they had a chance to breathe, old parts of yourself that were tucked away to make room for the person others needed you to be. Let yourself be in that quiet. Let it do its work. Let it show you what is waiting on the other side of all this outgrowing. The answers you have been looking for are not out there in the noise. They are in here, in the still and patient silence of your own deepest knowing. Sign 8. Someone in your life has stayed exactly the same, and somehow that is now making you feel the distance between who you are and who you used to be more clearly than anything else could. This is the 8th sign, and it operates through contrast. Sometimes you cannot fully see how much you have changed until you stand next to someone who has not changed at all. Someone whose perspective, whose priorities, whose way of engaging with life is almost exactly the same as it was 5 or 10 years ago. And when you stand next to that person, when you sit across from them in a conversation, you realize with a quiet jolt that you are no longer the same person who used to find that sameness comforting. You have moved. They have stayed. And that distance, though it is not anyone's fault, is now impossible to ignore. This is not a reason to judge them. People grow at different speeds. People grow in different directions. And the fact that someone has not changed the way you have is not a measure of their worth. It is simply a fact of where they are in their own journey. But what this contrast gives you is clarity. It holds up a mirror and shows you in sharp relief just how far you have come. It shows you that the shift happening inside you is not imaginary. It is not a phase or a mood. It is a real and lasting transformation. Something has genuinely changed in you. Something has genuinely grown. And now your life, your relationships, your daily choices need to begin catching up with the person you have actually become. That is the work in front of you now. Not to mourn the distances, but to build a life that truly reflects who you are today. Sign 9. A boundary you never thought you could hold is now holding itself, almost without effort, and that surprises you more than anyone else. This is the 9th sign, and it is one of the most hopeful and affirming ones. Cancer is known for having a tender heart, a heart that struggles with disappointing others, a heart that often agrees to things it does not want to agree to simply to preserve harmony and avoid conflict. Setting boundaries has historically not been easy for you. It has required enormous energy, enormous courage, and often a great deal of guilt. But something is changing. Without fully understanding why, you are beginning to notice that certain things you used to allow are no longer getting through. Someone asks something of you that is not right, and instead of bending yourself into a shape that accommodates them, you find yourself simply saying no, not with anger, not with drama, just quietly and clearly. A situation arises that would have previously pulled you into a spiral of overthinking and self-sacrifice, and this time, almost without trying, you step back from it. This is not because you have become cold. You are still the same warm, caring, deeply loving Cancer you have always been. But something underneath your warmth has strengthened. Something in your core has solidified. And that solid core is beginning to do the work of discernment automatically, filtering out what is genuinely yours to carry and what belongs to someone else. This is one of the most beautiful things that happens when Cancer truly begins to grow. The softness does not disappear, it deepens. But it is no longer the only thing present. There is now a quiet strength underneath the softness, and that strength is changing everything about how you move through your days. Sign 10. You are beginning to feel, perhaps for the first time in a very long time, that something genuinely wonderful is waiting just on the other side of this discomfort, and that feeling, however faint, is the most important sign of all. This is the 10th sign. Not a sign of what you are leaving behind, but a sign of what you are moving toward. Growth is never only loss. For every layer that is shed, for every old pattern that is released, for every relationship or role or dream that is outgrown, something new and more alive takes its place. And the moment you begin to feel that newness, even just as a whisper, even just as a faint light at the edge of your awareness, that is the moment the real transformation begins. Cancer, you are not falling apart. You are rearranging. You are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself. A self that is more honest, more grounded, more courageous, and more deeply aligned with your truest nature than you have ever been before. The discomfort you feel right now is not a sign that something is going wrong. It is a sign that something is going right. Something is working. Something is moving. And the life that is forming on the other side of this passage is one that you will recognize, not because you have lived it before, but because it has always been waiting for you. It has always been the life that was meant to be yours. You have two options after this video: close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are. Trust the signs. Trust the process. Trust yourself. The outgrowing is not the end of your story. It is the most important beginning you have ever had.